Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform, both online and in this studio. It's day 303 of the heroic resistance of the Ukrainian people. My name is Olga Atamanova, and now we will be talking about the situation in Melitopol. Joining us online is Ivan Fedorov, the mayor of Melitopol. Good afternoon, Mr. Ivan. Good afternoon, Mr. Ivan. Just recently, there was information about the explosion of the car of the FSB serviceman in Melitopol. If you have any information in this regard, can you please give us a few comments on that? In the very center of the city of Melitopol, the car was blown up of the officer of the car of the captured from the officer of the community of the Melitopol. The car was used by a collaborationist who collaborated with the occupational police, with the enemy police forces. And as of today, we know we're just waiting for the official confirmation. He was guiding one of the units of the local occupier police units, which was deployed in Melitopol. And then what we're seeing now is the gradual eradication of the collaborationists who betrayed our country. Those are good news, and there is information that there are some Kadyrov troops having entered the town. What's going on there? How many was the concentration of the Russian forces in the city, and what's the situation with the residents in there? Is there some pressure by the Russians on the local population, and what's the humanitarian situation in the city? Yes, really, this week we're witnessing the concentration of Russian forces in the city. Really, there are Kadyrov troops riding around the town with in their trucks with the machine guns, and those units, they took control over the block posts in Melitopol and Vasilivka, and they controlled the mobilized troops of the Russian Federation entering the city of Melitopol. My apologies. Today we're also witnessing the mass concentration of the Russian forces, and what's important, the rotation of Russian forces in Melitopol and the Melitopol district as well. It's the planned liquidation of Russian forces that is going on, so that they try migrating from one school or kindergarten or another educational institution, moving from one educational institution to another. They understand that there is a intense resistance in this area, so they're trying to migrate. There is a growing panic in their ranks, and running a little bit ahead, I want to say that nobody flees, nobody runs, but the panic is growing in their ranks. Yesterday in the Melitopol district, the evacuation training was started. What it looked like, there was the training and preparation for the evacuation of the local villages, the evacuation from kindergartens and the schools. The children were taken out from the schools, and they were told to prepare for evacuation. And also there is a preparation for evacuation from Vasilivka and adjacent areas. The panic is growing in the ranks of collaborationists. They are being told that they will not be paid salaries because Russia forwards all their funds for the support of their army, and there is panic among the civil population. They buy food products with a long shelf life because they understand that there might be breakdowns with the supplies of the food, and Russians are trying to eradicate hryvnia and our residents try to use hryvnia at least for procurement of food products. So the situation is intense and quite dynamic in occupied Melitopol region. You mentioned Vasilivka. What's the situation with citizens' exit in the occupied territory? Thank you for the question. The situation is dynamic with exit of our citizens from Vasilivka. The Russians ceased to let our men out of occupied territory. So the men from 18 to 60 years, so they just stopped letting them through. But this week they blocked the exit completely. A few columns of people tried to exit. Somebody tried to enter from Zaporizhia region to Melitopol, but Russians didn't let a single person through. Before it was until the 1st of January. Now they're talking about the 15th of January. So they announced new rules today. So if people walk, they can walk through the block post due to some emergency reasons. So we'll wait and we'll see how the situation is changing. That's another way of torturing our people, because just for our understanding, what's the distance do people have to walk? So if you go from Melitopol to Vasilivka, they said they can let people through Vasilivka block post, and it's about 4 to 5 kilometers to walk to the gray zone, and then about 10 kilometers through the gray zone, and only then people may be picked up by the cars coming from Zaporizhia. So it's about 10 to 15 kilometers that people will have to walk. This is what we know for the time being, but we don't know what it will look like in reality. Thank you for this information, dear colleagues. Do you have any questions in the studio? Thank you. Irina Mamchur, Ukrinform. Could you please tell us what's going on with the kids who remained in Melitopol? Now is the winter holidays time, the recess. Did the holidays really begin, and are children let to go on holidays, or there was information that they are being forcibly brought to Moscow for some New Year celebrations? Is it still going on, and how they can avoid it? And I would also like to ask, you mentioned that people can walk through Vasilivka block post, but in general, is there a way to go out of occupied Melitopol, and what's necessary for that? Are there some permits required for that? Thank you, and I will have another question. Thank you for the question. Well, first of all, about the kids, it's difficult to say whether there will be holidays or not, because there is no normal education process in Melitopol, but the terror is going on. The Russians announced that they are going to bring about 1,500 to 2,000 children to Moscow for winter holiday celebration. And there was a work with the parents, what they have to do in order not to let their children go. But Russians showed a video yesterday how they brought 200 kids to Russia, and we don't know how soon they will return. We don't know what's going on with them. The same situation was recently in Energodar when the kids were taken for holidays to Russia. They were promised to be returned in a week, but they came back in 2 months only. That's one way of the another way of pressure on their parents. And regarding the evacuation by other routes, it's becoming increasingly difficult. We asked our citizens to leave through the Russian borders with European Union, and Russian bodyguard doesn't let the people out of the occupied territories. About 80% of our residents who try to leave the occupied territories, they are being turned around and not let through. What's the algorithm? Why they're not being let out? It's still not understood. And about the exit, yes, people are required to fill some questionnaires and to get the permits, but the permit doesn't really give them the right to leave the occupied territories. Thank you. In another question, in different public channels, there is unconfirmed information about the annihilation of Kadyrov base in Tokmak, Kadyrov troops base in Tokmak. We know that there are explosions in Melitopol and adjacent areas, and we don't know whether it was the headquarters of the Kadyrov troops, but let's wait for the confirmation about our general staff, so they give us some confirmed information in this regard. Another question regarding the fortifications being built by the Russians. We see it on the video, on the photos, in the open sources. What's going on there? And doesn't it remind you of the situation with Kherson before the occupation of Kherson? Well, I'm breathing heavily because my native city is turning into a fortress, a stronghold. Before that, we were talking that they're building fortification around Melitopol, but now they're building something inside Melitopol, some concrete structures. They're dragon teeth, and they cover the whole city and the streets of the city. Yes, it reminds me of Kherson. They were trying to defend themselves, but then they fled. We all pray so that they flee from Melitopol, so our residents don't suffer and our military has less work. But now we see more concentration of the Russian forces in Melitopol, and they're building fortifications there. Thank you for joining us, dear colleagues. I'm reminding you, joining us was Ivan Fedorov, the mayor of Melitopol, and we're hoping that soon Melitopol will be back under our banner. Our next briefing is at 13 o'clock. Joining us will be Volodymyr Rybalkin, the head of Svetogirsk territorial community, and we will talk about the situation in Svetogirsk and adjacent areas. So bear with us, trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.